Welcome back to another episode of the FGLI podcast. Today's guest is Enne Kim, who is currently a junior in the College of Arts and Sciences. She's currently majoring in English and International Relations and is a part of the Signal at Penn. In this episode, we talk to Enne about navigating pre-law at Penn and as a FGLI student. She shares her experiences interning at a law firm as well as working abroad for the summer. We also dive into how being FGLI influences your career path and choices. Stay tuned for this and more in this episode. Hello, welcome back to the FGLI podcast. Today we have this week's guest, Enne Kim, a junior in the College of Arts and Sciences majoring in English and International Relations. I'm one of your hosts, Emily.
And I'm Joanne.
How are you doing today, Enne?
I'm doing great. It's like the thick of midterm season, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, it's definitely getting a lot colder too, which is kind of sad. But
yeah, so let's start off with our icebreaker question for you. You ready for this?
No.
Yeah. Oh. Well, okay, so let's say you have a YouTube channel with 1 million subscribers. That's a lot. What's your content?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm the type of person who has like a million Instagram pages for like different parts of my life. I know Emily knows one of them, which is my matcha account. And then in high school, I used to have a book account where I posted like book reviews. And I also have another account for like my digi pictures. So I feel like I'm thinking like I would probably like compile all of those different things into my YouTube channel and like actually like have one central base for that. So matcha, I guess reading, and I guess not digipics, but just like vlogs, I guess, of the people I love.
so like would your content be like separate videos about like matcha and then like separate videos about like books, or is it like how are you going to combine them?
Wait, yeah, like I'll just see whichever gets me the most views and likes first, and then I'll like go with whichever concept is the best.
What about you, Joanne?
Oh my god. Crazy story. I tried starting a YouTube channel back in high school, and I was trying to like put that back up again in college. But because of like midterm season and like finals coming up, let's see how that goes. Otherwise, I think I kind of starting everything on Reels first. So I only had like one video so far. So I think I'm trying to, at the time of recording, maybe do another Reel like this week. But we'll see how that goes depending on the time and like management. Yeah. What about you, Emily?
I don't know. I feel like I would also want to do like vlogs and stuff, because I feel like once I came to Penn, I realized I started documenting my life a lot more on like, you know, like through video and like cameras. And like I also recently got a digi, or not recently, but like it was a digi that my uncle got me like when I was like younger, and then like I like, quote unquote like revived it and like started using it again. But I like doing a lot of like semester recaps and like making reels from that, so maybe like a lot of just like random like recaps of like my life.
I love that.
But yeah.
What are some other things about yourself that you want to show or tell to our audience?
Oh yeah, so I'm originally from Buford, Georgia, which is like a small suburb, like 40 minutes outside of Atlanta. My parents are immigrants from Korea, and I feel like that like really informed, I guess, like how I've grown up, and also like just like how I perceive my future and things like that, and also my college career. Like you guys introduced me, I am majoring in English and IR. Is there anything else you want?
Just anything you want the viewers to know.
Oh, okay. You should follow my matcha account at Greenie Drinks Matcha, and Greenie is GREENEY.
Okay. You were kind of mentioning how like your parents and like your upbringing kind of influenced like what type of career you want. So can you like go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I grew up kind of surrounded by a Korean immigrant community. I don't know if you guys have heard of Duluth. Like a surprising amount of people here know what that is, but it's like a small Koreatown in Georgia, and I feel like growing up in that context and like kind of having at least all my Asian friends be Korean, kind of had I had this like Korean immigrant like mindset like drilled into me from a young age, which meant I had to work really hard and like get one of those 3 jobs, like lawyer, doctor, engineer, which I'm sure you've heard like a lot of Asian people already say. But I think my parents are a little bit non-traditional in the sense that my mom in college, she also majored in like literature or like Korean literature. And so I think she was a lot more open-minded to like what I wanted to pursue in the future. Although my dad still kind of really wanted me to fall into one of those categories. And also because we grew up in like a low income like immigrant community, I also really wanted to, you know, provide for my family like after graduation and kind of give back some resources monetarily and like physically to my parents after graduating. So I also thought like one of those 3 jobs would be really beneficial for me, which is why I'm pre-law. But I think I'm allowing myself to like kind of enjoy my studies in college right now, like majoring in English, majoring in IR, while I'm also studying for LSAT and like preparing for grad school after this. So yeah, I'm trying to like kind of balance those 2 aspects of my life, like my more creative, intellectual desires versus what I know I need to kind of professionally do in order to like be realistic about my future, while also kind of like uplifting my family status a little bit.
Wait, no, I feel like I definitely get that, because like I think it's interesting because I'm like pre-med, I'm like currently applying to med school, but like the funny thing is that like my parents never told me that like they wanted me to like become a doctor. And I think that like their biggest thing was like, oh, Emily, like we just want like you and your brother to like kind of finish college, have that college degree in order to like get to places, because they know like how important like a college degree can be in terms of like getting jobs and like getting promotions and stuff. But I don't know where I was going with that. But I think it's just like, yeah, I think like it's definitely interesting how like I guess the FGLI identity definitely like influences what you want to do in the future. It's not like because you don't have that foundation or like that stability like where you can like kind of like explore anything you kind of want to do.
Yeah, I think like going off of that, I think being FGLI also kind of meant like my parents really valued, and like also them being Korean, like Penn is such a big name in Korea. Like as long as I got into like one of the Ivy Leagues or like one of the top schools, it low-key like didn't matter as much like what I studied or what I majored in, because they were already comfortable with the fact that I had gone into like a top university. But I think it was interesting kind of seeing how it's different with my younger brother, because he is a freshman at the University of Georgia, and their mindset like approaching his college decisions was very different than mine.
How
like,
so?
Oh yeah. Because one, like I was kind of, as the oldest daughter, I'm kind of like their safety net, or more of like, you know, I'm the one they're going to rely on for like, I guess like financial security, etc. after I graduate. And also my brother was, I think it's like a trade-off, like he was going into like a more secure like engineering like pre-professional track, so to them it kind of mattered less what college he went to, because he's also like on this special program to transfer to Georgia Tech after 6 months. So I think their approach to his college career was like very much like their anxiety was alleviated because I had already gotten into Penn, and you know I was kind of, like I said, like I was their safety net and whatnot.
Do you think like being or like having the status of, you know, being the safety net for your family like ever giving you pressure or like some sort of like influence within your journey like throughout here at Penn?
Yeah, I think it was really hard. Well, one, because they relied on me so much for things like just like placing a lot of value on what my future career and like financial security would look like, even though, and then on like the flip side, they couldn't really offer like any, I guess, guidance on how to approach those things because they hadn't done those things in America before. So it's kind of hard navigating that kind of dichotomy on my own, and also like trying to figure out like, you know, how to apply to these really competitive internships and like these jobs and like research positions, etc. So I think, but I do think a lot of that pressure was like very much like self-inflicted, and also like more inflicted by the environment at Penn. I was actually talking to my best friend from home because she grew up in the same exact environment as me. But her experience at Yale has been really different for her. She doesn't feel as much of these like pre-professional pressures that I guess I feel. Even though her parents also, she's also the oldest daughter, like they also kind of see her as like a safety net. So I think that a lot of it has been exacerbated just by my own self and like the competition at Penn.
Yeah, I feel like Penn is like I didn't realize how competitive Penn is, or like how pre-professional it is. Like where like it's like the motto of like work hard, play hard is like everyone's motto, and I feel like definitely like as FGLI, I think that's like even more emphasized too.
Yeah.
Kind of related to what you said. So like being pre-law at Penn, how is it navigating that as FGLI? If there is any difference, you feel like?
Yeah, so I actually worked at a law firm this past summer, and it's one of the top 20 firms in the US. So it's like a corporate law firm that focuses on international arbitration, or basically negotiating contracts between countries and like sometimes helping people out, like refugee situations pro bono. Although every law firm has to do pro bono work for like their social status, but whatever. It was a really interesting environment because I could tell everyone came from a very much like, they were not first generation in this type of workforce, nor like this type of corporate culture, but it was my first time kind of being submerged into this, especially at such a prestigious law firm. And I think I was very much intimidated by what I would expect my future to look like if I wanted to work at like one of these places. And I think I did change my mind after that experience on what type of work culture I'm looking for, not necessarily the corporate world, which I initially wanted to go into just because like, you know, it pays very well, while also I get to do really interesting things with international law. But I think after that, I changed my mind and kind of redirected to a more like, you know, money isn't like everything. There's also like a really important part of culture, like workplace culture, and like how people are going to understand me as a person, which I think was a really big step for me to take, as like, you know, coming from a FGLI background, money is kind of central to how you view like career and like professions and things like that. And so I'm more leaning more towards nonprofit law and like, you know, United Nations type beer.
I guess like with your like slight shift in like career path, how has your family reacted to that?
Well, I guess they low-key did not know like what I was gonna do anyway. Like they just hear the word law and they're like, okay, you're gonna be a lawyer. Like it doesn't, like the type of law doesn't really matter. And I also like in high school until I came to Penn, like I didn't know there would be all these different sectors of law. So I guess going back to your previous question, like being pre-law at Penn meant I really had to navigate everything on my own, because unlike pre-med, there's no set of like designated courses. There's not really my pre-major advisor doesn't really know anything about law because his like research focus and everything is in international relations, and then my English advisor, he is also like solely focused on like obviously English stuff. So both of them didn't really know that much about law. Even my IR advisor was like, oh, like just don't go into it, like like it's going to be hard and like it's not worth it. But in terms of like what I'm studying right now in relation to that, because you know there's not really such a thing as international law, which is what I'm actually interested in, but yeah, like that was just something I was thinking about as well, like trying to navigate like pre-law culture. I mean, there are like also a lot of clubs kind of focused on that, like the John Marshall Pre-Law Society or like the Penn Undergraduate Law Journal. But yeah, a lot of these clubs, while they're helpful, they don't really like show you how to navigate really important things that add to your like pre-law resume, how to study for LSAT. There are like helpful info sessions, but it's really something you kind of have to take on your own accord. And especially like when you don't have family resources, it's really hard to start the process or like know where to start. I was talking about this in one of my classes, economic development in East Asia, but my professor said the biggest thing, the biggest factor that contributes to like social mobility, like going up in like the social ladder, is your parents, like what kind of cultural capital they can give you, so like what kind of knowledge they can impart on you. And he did a study where like this kid whose two parents, they were both professors, and then they had worked for a really long time and like become experts in their field. They were still kind of living in like a low income area. They were able to get their kid into like the top university in Taiwan, and like that kid later went on to work at like some really big company in the US, which is like a huge deal. And then a kid of similar like intellectual abilities, like as based on like test scores and things like that, his parents were restaurant owners, and so they couldn't pass on the same type of cultural capital to him. And so he went to like one of the lower tier universities in Taiwan and just went later on to take over the restaurant his parents worked at. And so I think that kind of like shows in this environment where a lot of kids, like their parents are already lawyers or like some type of profession that's like really high up, and so they know like how to start this process. But yeah,
I feel like definitely. I remember like I was talking to Peter, one of the other like exec producers, on the FGLI podcast. He was basically saying that for the people that are like, I think that are currently med students, it's like 50% of like their parents are like already doctors, so then they already know what how like the process is like getting into med school and like, you know, like studying for the MCAT and doing all like the stuff that you need to do in order to apply to med school. I feel like it definitely resonate with like how you feel and how like it kind of feels like you don't know what to do at all, like where do you even start. And I feel like it's very similar to like even just applying to college in general. It's like how do you like even start that too, and it's like very difficult.
Definitely, like being given like the FGLI like title, I guess, or like being associated with the FGLI like community, it's also the fact that like what are the resources that you're given, or like what background do you already have. Like for some families or like students that are not FGLI, like they tend to have like already have some sort of background or some sort of association with whatever field that they choose to be in. So like let's say like for pre-law even, like there can be students who are not FGLI that already have like relatives in the law field, or maybe they just have some sort of connection with the entire like field of law, like when it comes to like law firms or like even working at different courts. Like just like this simple connection could like really change the way that you approach the field, if that makes sense. I don't really know. I'm also kind of like pre-law student, so I guess for me, like I'm also like sometimes at some points like having difficulty like navigating like, dang, how do I even study for the LSATs when I like after I just got here, or like how do I get these internships, how do I make these connections to these law firms outside of campus. But that kind of leads to like maybe like the next question on navigating like what fields you want to do like as a FGLI student. Were there any like different career paths that you have considered before like finalizing on pre-law? Well, not really finalizing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think, well, the reason I'm an English major is because I really love creative writing, and so I definitely think I considered just becoming a full-time author. But obviously, I was like, that's not going to make money, at least for like a few years while I'm writing my manuscript. So I either have to marry someone rich like ASAP, or I have to like get an actual job. And I also think there's a certain amount of stigma associated with like, you know, the career that your child is going to choose. And so I also wanted my parents to be proud of like saying what they wanted me to do. I think my dad is really like happy about like saying like my like bragging about his daughter being pre-law, even though it kind of means nothing in undergrad, to like his coworkers or his friends. And so I think while I did consider that, it wasn't really a heavy consideration. And I think I always knew I wanted to be like kind of go onto this legal journey while also, you know, maybe doing creative writing as a hobby. But I think in terms of like financial security and more of like my parents' concerns, those took centrality rather than, I guess, like what I considered to be more of a hobby.
I guess your side hustle can be the YouTube channel.
Like real.
And the books.
We heard that you have been part of Signal and Grip, and just before we get into those specific questions, is there like any like individual or like any specific experience that has inspired you like throughout being a pre-law FGLI student?
Yeah, I guess specifically for that identity, I guess, like I said, I worked at like a law firm this past summer, and then I met with like a FGLI Korean American law student who was like a 1L, or like her first year of law school at Penn Law. And then I kind of like had a really long coffee chat with her, asking her like, oh, like how's your experiences, especially because she's a summer associate at the same firm I'm interning at, so she's getting paid to like do research and like kind of like test the waters of being like an actual associate at the firm. So I asked her if she felt like discriminated against as an Asian American woman, because they make up, I think, less than 0.5% of like
What?
lawyers in the US.
Crazy.
Yeah, which is also like proportional to like how many there actually are in the US, but I don't know, it's still like a very small number. And I asked her like a bunch of questions I had, and I guess this is like more to encourage like you or like any other potential like pre-law Asian American FGLI woman. She said like after she got into law school, she realized like she doesn't really need to prove herself to anyone anymore. She's already, because she went to Penn undergrad, she already has like proven her academic, intellectual, like lawyer capabilities like over and over again, and especially landing a summer associate position at this firm, she's also like, oh, sorry,
Very good.
she's also proven like that she's capable of doing enough for this career. And so that really helped her in kind of like avoiding, I guess, self-criticism or things like that when she felt like she was lagging behind other people. And the lagging behind was not in terms of how much research she could do or what kinds of things she could contribute to like the partner she was working under, like their work, but more in terms of like very like social, like corporate kind of culture things, like what to do in like a business meeting setting or like how to network with people. Like those were the things that she felt she was lagging more behind in. And so because she knew she was like, you know, academically proving herself, like all she needed to do was learn these social cues that could be picked up like over time, especially as you work more in like a corporate setting. And yeah, that was just really encouraging to me, because I realized like, yeah, everyone's like going through this journey, but it's like it's okay to like have to learn these things, and you will learn these things, and it'll be like, it might not be like the quickest like thing to learn, but you will like get there.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of like relates to like your story or your anecdote about like the two like Taiwanese kids and how like their parents kind of have like different like I guess like social knowledge, I guess, but like it's kind of similar of like, oh, like I feel like because certain fields can be so intimidating to like FGLI students because like people like in their family that like has not they haven't explored like that field, or like they don't know how to like navigate or even start in the first place, is very like scary and intimidating,
right?
Where like they're just like turned off by it and they're just like, okay, like I don't want to like go into this. But I think like that's like really encouraging that like she told you that.
Yeah,
right. And like it definitely ties into like the idea of like imposter syndrome, like feeling like, oh, like even though like maybe you've like made it to Penn even, but you still feel like, oh, I still identify as like, or like I'm still different than like the rest of the students that are here. So definitely like I love that lesson that the person told you, and I think I'm hanging out on my dorm wall.
Yeah, I think kind of on that point, like I guess I wouldn't say I think I'm that different from like other students. Yeah, I think it's more about well, like I guess everyone's always conscious of like their income background, but you know, we're all at the same school, and like we all like got here through mostly our own merit. Yeah, like we all got here based on like our own merit, and like we all deserve to be here, so despite like, you know, whatever socioeconomic background we came from.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like being at Penn has definitely taught me that like FGLI, or like just the identity and the experiences that you like earn from it, is like very much a strength rather than like a weakness. But I think that like, I think I was like in high school I was always ashamed about being FGLI, or like I didn't even know like that I was FGLI. I was just like, oh, I'm poor. And then now like, oh, FGLI. Like really? I think having that like label kind of like gave a sense of pride to me to a certain extent. But then also just like being at Penn and being like in a community where like people are proud to be FGLI also has definitely like helped me with my journey too.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like, I guess, like, I feel like FGLI's the type of identity where it doesn't, like, some people are obviously, like, poorer than others, but it's kind of, like, still a shared community. Like, we're still, like, all kind of struggling towards the same things, and we all, I think mostly there is, like, a sense of, like, familial loyalty as well. Like, we all want the best for, like, the people who, like, brought us here, whether it's our parents or, like, other people. So I think that was also really important. Yeah.
Okay. So pivoting from, like, your career and, I guess, like, quote unquote conventional career paths, I know that you are part of the Signal. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so wait, should I explain what this is?
Yeah, explain what it is and then, like, why you joined it.
Yeah, so the Signal Society is a club on campus that tries to promote kind of swaying against this pre-professional culture and really promoting, like you said, unconventional pathways. I think what I really liked about this club is, like, everyone in it is low-key still, like, pre-professional, but that's okay. Like, you obviously, realistically, everyone needs to get a job, everyone wants to get a high-paying job, but that doesn't mean you have to let go of, like, what makes you unique and also your creative pursuits and endeavors. Like, in fact, that should strengthen your future profession as well. You want to stand out in your job. You want to stand out in your life, like, for yourself as well. So for Signal, I'm project leader. Yeah, I'm PL for Humans of Penn, which is a project where we basically interview different students around campus, mostly seniors. And then we ask them different questions about kind of their path through Penn, also, like, what makes them unique as individuals, and also if they've taken, like, any unconventional routes to get to where they are today. Like, we ask them about that as well. I think it's been really eye-opening. Thank you, Emily, for interviewing for that.
No problem.
Yeah, and I think all my favorite interviews have just really been the ones that show me, like, oh, while you're pursuing these careers, like, it's really important to kind of still stay in touch with, like, your, like, personhood and, like, what makes you, like, a unique individual. And, like, I really enjoyed hearing how everyone continued, like, their connections with, like, the arts and, like, humanities, like, singing, music, like, all these things. Especially, like, this one girl I interviewed, she was, like, a creative writing minor, a neuroscience major, and I think it was really cool to see how she like, kind of wove those two aspects of her life together by, like, encouraging patients to write poetry at, like, this hospital she volunteered at, or also just, like, continuing to take classes that pushed her in ways of creativity, like taking a creative writing workshop and, like, keeping herself accountable to, like, who she is. But yeah, that's pretty much what we do at Signal. And then at the end of every semester, we do a panel called Failure at Penn, which is, we have a panel of 4 to 5 seniors, and we ask them questions about how they failed at Penn. And I think it's really to encourage, especially freshmen who are kind of getting into, like, this scene at Penn of, like, oh my gosh, like, everyone's applying to, like, a bajillion clubs, a bajillion internships, and they're all getting accepted except me. Like, we're trying to push away from that kind of mindset and show, like, all these really cool, like, amazing seniors who are very accomplished now in, like, their fields and who are landing, like, great positions, or not, like, after graduation they, like, failed a lot, like, before that. And we also do anti-resume, which is not my project, but it's still really cool. It's basically kind of going against, like, what a typical resume should look like. So we ask people to put, like, their rejections from all their internships, specifically naming them. Also, like, qualities that they like about themselves that you can't show on a resume. Like, I don't know, you love, like, going for coffee, like, every morning at 7. Or, like, you love going on runs or walks along the Schuylkill. And, like, all these, like, really important qualities that you're still human outside of these rejections, acceptances, etc. And none of those define who you are as a person. And also, the things that really stay with you forever in life are going to be those, like, things on that aren't shown on resumes, like things with your personality, with your friendships, and things like that. So I think we're really trying to break down that stereotype. And something else I've noticed is, like, the club is, like, 95% Asian. And I think, honestly, that's really important because I think, especially in Asian American culture, there's a need to be pre-professional because we come from such an academic, like high pressure, like academic environment, especially like the countries our parents immigrate from. And I think it's really cool to see like Asian Americans kind of stepping away from that mold in this club and kind of banding together to like really show there is like so much beauty and humanity like left outside of these professions. Yeah.
You said that very beautifully.
Oh, yeah,
I feel like your thoughts are very organized.
Wait, that's not true.
No trust.
Wait, really?
No, yeah, I was like, wow.
Yeah. Do you feel like your experiences or like your current mindset on like I guess like careers in general has been shaped by your experience like in Signal, or was it kind of like that beforehand and then that's why you joined Signal?
I would say like kind of maybe a mixture of both, because I think before Signal I thought, oh, I have to choose like either my artsy side or my like professional side in like different contexts. But I think through Signal's projects, like being director of Humans of Penn project, like I realized I can combine those two aspects of my life. For example, like I can interview like other pre-law students for Humans of Penn, and you know that's like incorporating both my professional academic side and like more creative side. So it's not really a strict dichotomy between those two parts of my lives. It's more like, where can I find opportunities to like be creative in my workplace slash profession slash research and things like that, and where can I intentionally like seek opportunities to continue honing what I think is important. Like for me, I really I have to be forced to like take a creative writing workshop in order to continue writing. Otherwise I just like won't be accountable to doing that over the school year. So I make sure I take one workshop class every year or every semester. And also it like counts towards my major. But yeah, like even majoring in English, like that was a decision I made to like consciously continue devoting myself to like an art form that I really value. And I also think a lot of that was shaped by my mom. Like I said, she kind of took a more unconventional route in her undergraduate university in Korea, and I think for her it was a lot more of a struggle because her parents didn't want her to like study that. So I'm really grateful that she went through that, and because of that she really encourages me to pursue what I am passionate about and what I love doing. And so yeah, I'm grateful for that presence in my life too.
Oh, actually I had a quick question. So like I guess like you said that you mentioned that your mom did go to college but in Korea, right?
Yeah.
So I guess like how does that like, because I know like the definition of being FGLI is like, oh, first gen low income. It's like first gen like being the first to go to college in your family, right? I guess like how much do you associate with the FGLI identity?
Oh yeah, I guess for me I think of it as like first gen in America, and also because both my parents like dropped out of college. But I guess that does like kind of add an extra layer of nuance to like my experience, because my parents both went to at least partly like undergraduate college in Korea. And so I think I associate much more strongly, I guess, with like the low income part of like FGLI. And yeah, I think a lot of their like ideas of like higher education and like the positive impacts of that and like the positive aspects of that has also been shaped by their own like educational backgrounds.
We also heard that you were part of GRIP. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences?
Yeah, so during my freshman year, I applied to a GRIP journalism internship in Herzliya, Israel. And I really wanted to do this for two reasons. One, I was interested in the conflict in the Middle East for a really long time. I really wanted to witness that firsthand, because I think growing up, I was part of a lot of political movements in my hometown, and I think a really important thing of being Asian American is taking part in these political things. Like, we add such a unique like identity to these social movements, and I'm kind of sad to see a lot of my friends be really apolitical, but I hope that, and I do see that changing a lot now. And then two, I wanted to do an investigative journalism project on my own. Back then I was writing for 34th Street, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll like publish it there. But then I was like, maybe not after October 7th. I really wanted to see how Palestinians were being like unjustly treated by the Israeli government. And so I went there for a journalism internship for a news outlet called No Camels, and it's actually the people there are so beautiful and lovely, and I think I developed a very interesting perspective after going there, because initially before going there I was very much like, there's a dichotomy between like the colonizer and the colonized, which is still true. I still believe that. But I think there's also a dichotomy between people in Israel who support Palestine, who support like liberation, and people who are also suffering the consequences of colonialism. Like, anyone under colonial power is going to suffer like these impacts and consequences. And also, people can't control where they're born, and people can't control like where they're going to school, things like that. And I think I really valued a lot of the encounters I had in Israel and in Palestine. And I hope, you know, in our lifetime, there will be the liberation of Palestine. But at the same time, I think through that internship, just like the process of interviewing, which I'm sure you guys have experienced that through podcast interviews, like, you really get to know people on such a deep and personal level, just by like exchanging questions and answers, and by kind of hearing their voices and like seeing them as a person, vulnerably answering, like mostly on the spot. And I think all those people I met in Israel, like, I will not forget them anytime soon. And I'm really happy that there's so many people like kind of encouraging these different social movements, especially because Netanyahu was already kind of a controversial figure like before much of this happened, and people were always protesting against him. Like, there was a full protest at the Tel Aviv airport during the time I was there, and had to be locked down for like a day, which is like a crazy amount of time for an airport shut down. But yeah.
Oh, and do you think your overall experience at like in your internship, like within the country, has ever like tied into your choice of staying as a pre-law student, or like being, or like wanting to go to law school, or like IR?
Yeah, like, how has my internship affected like what I want to do for my like grip?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I did pretty different things freshman summer and this summer, or last summer. But I think for grip, after that experience, I did like add the IR major, because I was like, wow, these are like very important things, and I really want to learn more about them. But I did like kind of switch my concentration from like the Middle East region to more the East Asia region, because I think that's where I also see a lot of the same kind of like leftover aftermaths of colonies like Taiwan, Korea, some parts of China from like Japanese rule, and I kind of want to see how that's contributing to like the economic distributional consequences today, as well as like, you know, the ongoing tensions between China and Taiwan, and Japan, North Korea, and South Korea, and also the ongoing like Korean War. So yeah, after that I realized like these are very important issues, and I think as a FGLI student, a lot of the time it can be really easy to get caught up in what you need to do as a person, like, and I obviously empathize with that, and I think putting like money and job security first, a lot of FGLI students have trouble like distinguishing between that and their social position in the world. But I think after that experience I realized like there's more to life than just like getting a profession, like trying to make as much money as possible and trying to get my family secure. There are other families out there who kind of need this support as well, and who are being impacted by these very high level international decisions, like all the way down to the grassroots, like just like how our families are impacted by whatever like tariffs or whatever the president implements like for the US. It trickles all the way down to like these individual families, and I think it's so important to like foster community internationally of like care and support. This only happens when like, you know, people who understand this go into like international politics or law.
Wait, yeah, I definitely like agree with that, because I feel like as FGLI, it's kind of like we get like wrapped up in our own world and like kind of forget about like other problems. And I feel like especially like being Asian American as well, it's like I guess the common characteristic of like how Asian Americans tend to be like apolitical, and I feel like that like you kind of touched upon that. and how like I feel like there definitely needs to be more like political activism or just like being educated on a lot of like, or like more civically engaged in more issues. I think also like for me too, I'm like guilty of like not being super duper engaged like I guess like in high school and like the beginning of my journey at Penn. But I think like later on just being surrounded by people and like Asian Americans and just people in general that like are more civically engaged and like more knowledgeable about these like topics like has definitely like pushed me to like kind of like learn about it more myself.
Yeah. Wait, and like yeah, I totally understand. Like I also was not the most civically engaged, like especially recently, I think. But I think it's kind of important just like, you know, always remember that, like you said, and kind of it's also really helpful to surround yourself with people who are kind of like-minded in that aspect, but also, you know, people who aren't, because you can kind of share those beliefs with them as well. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Just to close off this episode, we're gonna ask you to give your freshman self one piece of advice.
Whoa. Wait, this is funny because we just did Dear Freshman for Signal. But I guess one piece of advice I have for my freshman self is I think really focus on like the relationships that have been given to you. I think especially during freshman year, I was really caught up with like trying to make as many friends as possible and like talk to as many people as possible. Also, this applies to anything, like applying to as many jobs as possible, applying to as many internships as possible. But I think there are certain people who I believe were given to me and like placed near me, and like at this like other opportunities, like this can be applied to like jobs and like things like that. Like there are certain things that kind of open up for you. And I don't know, I was thinking about this because I was like, it's so random that I kind of randomly got into KC1 or during my freshman year because I ranked it at the bottom of my housing list. Okay, wait, thank God I didn't get quad. I like ranked it first, but yeah, and I was like, yeah, I met like so many of like my loveliest like best friends from K-Check. So glad that happened, and I wish, you know, I spent a little bit more time during freshman year investing my time into those relationships, because I learned only to do that like a little bit later in freshman year, and we could have had like so much more memories together. Not that there is like a big time difference, but I do think like there are certain people that you're able to get to know really well, and you know it happens naturally. And so yeah, like you don't have to force yourself to talk to every single person, but there are people and like opportunities and so many like life-giving moments that you can really invest your whole time into.
Very well said. Thank you again, Enne, today for joining us. We really appreciate you taking your time to share with us your experiences. Is there any way people can get in contact with you if they're interested in learning more about what we talked about today?
Wait, yeah, for sure. Also, like, I think I really want to kind of provide, like, resources for anyone also thinking about pre-law, especially for, like, legal internships over the summer. But I can be reached at ennekim@sas.upenn.edu or Green Drinks Matcha. Just kidding.
Yeah, it was definitely really insightful to hear about, like, your experiences being, like what led you to becoming pre-law, and also just like how your current experiences and also like your family has like shaped your like desire to like do that.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone. And for those of you listening, if you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to follow us on Instagram at FGLI Podcast, that is at FGLI PODCAST, and check out our website at fglipodcast.wordpress.com. For our other episodes, you can find us on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify at the FGLI Podcast. If you have anyone or any topics you will be interested in listening to, message us on Instagram.
Thank you so much again, Enne.